Your marinade is not doing what you think it's doing. After hours in that garlicky, acidic bath, most of the flavor hasn't moved more than a millimeter into the meat. And the reason why is stranger than you'd expect. We'll get to that in a minute. What we're going to do today is tear apart the science of marinating, separate the real magic from the mythology, and by the end, you'll know exactly how to marinate smarter, not just longer. Because it turns out, time is not your most important variable. Something else is, and we'll get there. Let's start with a big question everyone gets wrong. Does a marinade actually soak into meat? The honest answer is, barely. Meat is roughly 75% water, and those water molecules are already packed tightly into muscle fibers. A marinade is mostly liquid too, so you've got liquid trying to push into something that's already full. The outer few millimeters will absorb flavor compounds, but the bold claim that overnight marinating means flavor all the way to the center, that's largely a myth. Here's a study that puts it in stark perspective. Researchers at the American Meat Science Association found that after 24 hours in a marinade, most flavor penetration stopped at about 2 to 4 millimeters from the surface. That's roughly the thickness of your thumbnail. So if you're expecting the center of a thick chicken breast to taste like lemon and herb after a long marinade, you're going to be disappointed. But, and this is where it gets interesting, that doesn't mean marinating is pointless. It means understanding what a marinade actually does changes everything about how you use one. There are really 3 things a marinade can do well. It can build surface flavor, which is the most obvious and the most achievable. It can affect surface texture through acid or enzyme-based ingredients. And here's the one most people completely overlook, it can create a crust or bark during cooking that locks in an entirely different layer of complexity. We're going to break all 3 down. Surface flavor first. Oil carries fat-soluble flavor compounds, things like garlic, rosemary, and citrus zest. Water carries water-soluble compounds like salt and vinegar. Both are doing work on that surface layer, and that surface layer is the first thing your palate hits when you take a bite. So even if flavor doesn't penetrate deep, what's happening at the exterior matters enormously. That gorgeous sear on a marinated flank steak, that's where flavor lives. The Maillard reaction, the chemical process that browns meat at high heat, works on those marinated surface compounds and turns them into something insanely complex. Caramelized garlic, charred herb bits, that slightly sticky glaze. That's your marinade doing its best work. Now here's the part that trips people up. Acid. Most marinades contain acid. Lemon juice, vinegar, wine, buttermilk. The conventional wisdom says acid tenderizes meat.
The truth is more complicated and honestly a little surprising. Acid does denature the surface proteins, which initially softens the texture. But leave meat in an acidic marinade too long and it starts working against you. The proteins don't just soften, they tighten and contract, turning the surface mealy and mushy rather than tender. Ever had grilled chicken that felt almost chalky on the outside? Over-acidic marinade left on too long. The sweet spot for acid-heavy marinades is usually between 30 minutes and 2 hours, depending on thickness. Longer isn't better. Longer can actually ruin it. So what actually tenderizes meat if not acid alone? This is where enzymes come in, and this is the detail that separates good cooks from great ones. Certain fruits contain proteolytic enzymes that physically break down muscle protein. Papaya has papain, pineapple has bromelain, kiwi has actinidin. These enzymes are ruthless. A marinade with fresh pineapple juice will genuinely tenderize meat at a structural level, not just at the surface. But the same warning applies. Leave it too long and you'll end up with meat that has the texture of wet tissue paper. For enzymatic marinades, 30 to 60 minutes is usually all you need. Pitmaster's tip. Salt is the single most underrated ingredient in any marinade. Here's why. Salt doesn't just season the surface, it actually draws moisture out of the meat through osmosis, then pulls it back in, carrying dissolved flavor compounds with it. This is the closest thing to true penetration marinating actually achieves. A salt-forward marinade, given enough time, will drive seasoning meaningfully deeper than any acid or oil alone. Think of it as the one ingredient that earns its keep on both the surface and beneath it. If you want deeper flavor, add more salt, not more time. Let's talk about something most marinade guides never mention. The physical state of the meat matters more than the marinade recipe. Scored meat, meaning you've cut shallow slashes across the surface, gives the marinade dramatically more contact area. Pounded meat, like a butterfly chicken thigh or a tenderized flank steak, exposes more internal surface and allows better penetration simply through disrupted fiber structure. Vacuum marinating, where you use a vacuum sealer to pull the marinade into the meat under negative pressure, is genuinely effective at driving flavors deeper in a fraction of the time. What normally takes 4 hours in a bag takes about 30 minutes in a vacuum environment. The science here is real. The pressure differential forces marinade into the pores and fibers that would normally resist it. Now let's talk about what the marinade does during cooking, because this might be the most underappreciated part of the whole story. When marinated meat hits a hot pan or a screaming grill, the marinade residue on the surface undergoes rapid transformation. Sugars caramelize, proteins brown, oils smoke at the surface.
This is where your marinade earns its reputation. The best marinades aren't designed just to soak, they're designed to perform under heat. Ingredients like soy sauce, honey, miso, and citrus zest behave spectacularly under high heat. They form a lacquered, deeply savory crust that carries umami, sweetness, and bitterness in every bite. This is why some of the most iconic marinated dishes in the world, Korean bulgogi, Jamaican jerk, Peruvian pollo a la brasa, use marinades that are architectural. They're not just seasoning the meat, they're engineering a crust. And that brings us to the strongest point of all, the one that reframes everything. Stop thinking about your marinade as something that changes the inside of the meat. Start thinking about it as a coating system that builds the best possible exterior. Design your marinade around what you want the crust to taste like. Use salt to drive seasoning inward. Use enzymes briefly if you want genuine tenderness. Use acid carefully and not for long. And then get your cooking surface ripping hot, so every one of those surface compounds gets the heat it needs to transform into something extraordinary. Because here's the truth about great marinated meat. The magic isn't in the soaking, it's in what happens when those compounds meet fire. If this cracked open how you think about marinating, I'd love to know. Drop your go-to marinade ingredient in the comments, the one thing you always reach for. I read every single one. Hit subscribe so you never miss a bite, and next time we're going somewhere that will absolutely change how you think about a cut most people walk right past at the butcher counter.